go to Simon Jackman now, CEO at the US Studies Centre. Simon, thanks as always. $750 tax bill, 2 years in a row. How does that play into the election, in your view, if at all?
Oh, I think it plays big time. It's going to clearly, look, what are we, 48, 72 hours away from the presidential debate that will be hosted by Chris Wallace. Chris Wallace, Kieran, you and I remember chatting in the aftermath of that interview that Chris Wallace hosted with Donald Trump from the White House. A remarkable piece of television that was. There's no way Chris Wallace is going to not bring that up. And it's something else for Trump to have to answer for. Now, he can brush it off as fake news, but there is a specificity and hence something of a credibility to the documents and the reporting that the Times has put out there that I think is going to stick around for a little while. On the other hand, Kieran, the pace at which the American news cycle turns over, you know, the earlier story we just had, Annalise's reporting about how the judicial nomination is playing out on the ground. There's an awful lot in the ether, as it were. But this is a big deal and something that I think a lot of those voters, whites with less than a college degree that voted for Donald Trump, it's going to stick in their core a little bit that yes, he's smart and wouldn't you take advantage of the tax code if you could, but nonetheless, I think as the details turn out that businesses are being run at a loss to offset gains and gets the tax credits from these windfall profits, say from his TV career, when I think if some of those mechanics start to really stick, that's when it could start to become an electoral liability for Trump.
And this is how President Trump responded to the story.
It's totally fake news, made up, fake. We went through the same stories. You could have asked me the same questions 4 years ago. I had to litigate this and talk about it. Totally fake news. No, actually, I paid tax. The IRS does not treat me well.
I guess, Simon, that's where I was getting at with the opening question to you, in the sense that does it shift the dial at all? I mean, I think you touched on it in terms of the independents. It might convince some of those, but in terms of his base, they're just going to say, look, it's fake news.
Yeah, I think that's right. Look, and I think the base will be receptive to that argument. But that's why the debate, and someone credible with the base, someone they're used to seeing on Fox News like Chris Wallace, if Chris Wallace picks up some of the specifics that aren't just about, you know, Mr. President, why don't you release your tax returns, but Mr. President, do you have $350 or $400 million in loans coming due in the second term of the office? Because, you know, really getting down in the weeds and seeing how Trump reacts to, you know, those more specific questions. I think we're in a slightly different situation to the one we were 4 years ago.
Yeah, okay. And in terms of, well, let's look at some of the other big issues. You've got the Supreme Court. We'll get to that in a moment. But I was just reading some analysis last night that said Florida is copping the worst of COVID-19 right now, just as people are starting to vote and so on. And that's diabolical, isn't it, for the president?
Yeah, it is. It's not good. And the other thing, you know, is how it affects the mechanics of voting. Who's going to go out and vote in person? Who's going to vote by mail? Florida is actually, you know, we did a webinar this morning with Charlie Cook, the Dean of Election Analysts in the United States at the US Studies Centre. It was our pleasure to host Charlie. And he pointed out Florida's actually got a pretty good vote by mail system now. After 2000, they've sort of got their act together in terms of the professionalism of their election administration. But so much of it is not just the politics of it, and does it hurt Trump with a you know, a new uptick in numbers in not just Florida, by the way, but a few other states as well. But how does it affect the mechanics of voting, and the act of participating in this election just gets all that more harder? And how does that break across partisan lines? And the answer is no one knows. We're running a very unusual, one-of-a-kind experiment. We hope it's one of a kind.
When you look at President Trump, the TV star, he's done so many years of television production. You saw that with the convention. It was so slick, his presentation. He's going to feel comfortable in the debates. So this is going to be a really important period for him if he demolishes Biden in the 3 debates.
Yeah, my sense is he's got to land a blow. The stability in these polls, the stability in Trump's approval numbers over time, the fact that historically we have a very low level of voters calling themselves undecideds, you get the sense that this might be a last try before you buy event, that a lot of people will tune in because Trump's always good TV, but to see if the argument about Biden holds water, that he is old, that he is senile, that he can barely complete a sentence if it's not written on a teleprompter in front of him. If Trump can get Biden to confirm some of that, if he can get Biden angry and if he can get Biden misspeaking, it's not a fair fight. But Trump, I think, is perhaps uniquely equipped among almost any recent presidential candidate to understand the high drama of this moment of political theatre, and has he figured out Biden's psychology? And it's going to be rope-a-dope, mano a mano, because it really is about the individuals, Kieran. It's about the argument that Trump is making about Biden being old and feeble versus, the election. Otherwise, though, is a referendum on Trump and his handling of the pandemic and the economic damage it's wrought as well. It's really about the performance of these two individuals. And this is where the polls are. Trump's got to pull something out of the hat and try to get Biden to bite, to give some validity to the way that Trump and Trump's allies have been sort of, if you will, tilling the field, preparing the battle space for this argument about Biden not being up for the task of being president of the United States.
You wouldn't put it past him or the drama of this election, would you? But just finally, I have to get your thoughts on Amy Coney Barrett, the nominee. How does this play into the presidential race, and how do the Democrats respond?
Look, it's hard. Look, I see it as a bit of a wash in terms of energy on both sides. It mobilizes. It's, all along, Kieran, I've been telling you, a day where American politics is not about COVID is a better day for Donald Trump than he would have been having otherwise. And that's certainly true with the politics and the fight around this nomination. So I think actually Senate Democrats need to be very careful how they play this. In some key races, it may actually hurt them. In some, it will help them. I think it's going to be very much the marginal swing state senators and for Republicans and Democrats. You may see a little bit of distancing from where their parties are as a whole. But it's also bringing into relief that we've got a Senate race up as well, not just a presidential race. I think Biden has got plenty to run on against Trump. He doesn't need a huge fight here and a particularly bruising nomination and confirmation process at this time. I think those Senate Democrats might, and so there's a little bit of an internal politics here to be negotiated. And Biden, you'll be very, it's very interesting to see already the nomination for him is about an attack on the Affordable Care Act. I think he wants to stay away from abortion politics until he really, really has to. I think there's plenty for Biden at the top of the ticket, thinking about the national context, to say this is about the ACA rather than about reproductive rights or abortion rights. And so the way the different parts of the Democratic Party are parsing this in different ways, it is fraught. It's fraught. I know they got a huge fundraising kick out of it in the early going. But this is not one-way traffic at all for the Democrats, and great care and great poise needs to be taken how they play it between now and the election.
35 days away. Simon Jackman, thanks. Talk to you soon.
You bet. Thanks, Kieran.